everyone. This is Constance from Mysterious Galaxy. Tonight we have a YA author in the house, which is my happy place, so you know I am beyond excited for the event. And we have Rebecca Phelps, and she is going to be in conversation with our author of the evening, Kassandra Tate. And her book is the Famix.
Yes.
Because I'm so trying hard to pronounce it correctly because we had a discussion about this earlier. I know that was a very dramatic pause before I properly said it, but I tried to be silly and say it with like a French accent, which is not how you properly say the book. So, the Famix is the book that we are going to be celebrating tonight. And I'm super excited because it is a book where you have future and you have reality TV. Who does not love the guilty pleasure of reality TV? And our main protagonist gets to enter said glamorous and beautiful world, but said glamorous and beautiful world is, of course, never as beautiful and glamorous as it appears from the outside, and these stakes are deadly, one may say, for how she will have to navigate this world. Now, Rebecca, I'm super excited because she is also an author as well, and I almost said next year, and I'm like, we're in 2021, but also later this year, she is having a book World coming out, which I'm also very excited about. So before I pass it off to our authors, the Vanna White section, everybody, that many of you are now familiar with. To the right-hand side, we have our chat section. We have 6 questions! Chef's kiss to you guys. That's amazing. Nice. So down below where it says ask a question, as you have discovered, that is indeed where you can ask a question. And then if you would like to purchase either one of these books, if you click the buy book and personalized book plate button down below, that's tricky to say quickly, then it will take you to our website where you can buy the Famix and you can get a personalized book plate with your book as well. And you can also pre-order Downworld. So on that note, I am going to go ahead and pass it off to Rebecca, and I will see you guys at the end of the event.
All right, so I have to say right away, people are asking the most brilliant questions, and we're going to get to all of them. I promise I will not forget. First off, though, I wanted to talk about, in your bio, you say that your name is Cassandra and that you're named after the Greek myth of Cassandra, right?
I'm not named after it, but I found that myth and was like, oh, this is very interesting.
I thought it was really cool because the character, the myth, is this character who can see the future, but no one believes her. This is cursed with it. And I was like, well, that's interesting because it kind of relates to your book. Did you feel a little bit when you were writing this book, like I'm predicting what the future is going to be of society, of reality TV?
I feel like anytime with a dystopian world, it's fun to feel like maybe you're predicting the future or at least giving a dramatized version of what could be based on where we're at now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like with reality TV, when I was planning this in like middle school, like just little daydreams about this concept, reality TV and like influencers and whatnot were nowhere near where they are now. So really could get to the point of my dystopian world at some point, honestly. Like as time progresses, it only gets more and more similar.
So you started this story when you were pretty young and you've been working on it for years, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on it in some capacity for a very long time. For a while, I just sort of had like characters in mind, and any little short story I'd write would have those characters who became the characters in this novel. And then when I was coming up with little dystopian concepts, they all went into this book when I was writing. And like the first novel I ever wrote was a version of this, like when I was 11, but it wasn't necessarily this yet. So it's been a long time coming, and I've tried to write other novels, but I kept coming back to this one. So yeah, it's been quite a few years.
So was there ever a moment where you sat down and said, here's the outline of this book? Or did you just piecemeal it together?
Sadly, there was never a moment where I did that. It was very just writing whatever I felt, whenever I felt it. And I feel like posting on Wattpad week by week, sort of, it's very easy to not have a plan, just sort of see what the readers, how they're liking something, and then explore that further or explore something else further. So that first book was 800 pages, the full Wattpad one, and it meandered and had plot lines that just went everywhere, a million characters. It was like a full season of television, basically,
Okay.
posting it week by week. So having to cut down for this editing process was very, very daunting, but very fun as well. Yeah.
What was the fun part?
The fun part was sort of just exploring things that, like, I realized I was just a couple months ago graduating college. So at the end of college, looking at a book that I had planned in middle school and wrote throughout high school on Wattpad, it was very nostalgic, and like, I feel like my writing style has progressed. I've like learned new writing styles. I've studied screenwriting in college. So returning to a book that has just always been there in my life and getting to sort of add my new insights on structure and pacing and whatnot that I have learned in classes, getting to apply that and sort of make this book a way better version. It was very fun, but stressful, but ultimately I'd say fun.
Okay. Was there anything that the editor wanted to get rid of that you're like, no, that's the best part?
Oh, that's hard because like some of the things that we had to cut were like full characters where I'm like, ooh, like every change that they were like, let's cut this, I understood. And I'm like, yeah, that definitely doesn't matter. Or we can mix that into something else. But when you've posted on Wattpad and like a lot of readers love it, you're like, what are they going to think, like when they read it and that person's not there anymore,
Yeah.
So that was what was worrying to me. I mean, I'm the kind of person who, if someone says, let's cut this, I'm like, absolutely, let's chop it. Like, I'm not emotionally attached too much, or I try to not be. And so, yeah.
I already killed that baby. I don't even care.
Exactly. Like, I'll kill off any of them. It's fine.
So you said you always had these ideas for dystopian realities and you would just sort of put them together. How did you know that you were going to be this author, that you were like, no, I have to write sci-fi. It can't be real. It has to be sci-fi for me. And what was that moment of, I know this is how I write. This is me.
I feel like I sort of love to go to books for like escapism and to go into an entirely new world. And so writing, a lot of the time, it's just living in a new world and getting to see all these dramatic problems and like concepts that don't even exist yet. Like, that's something I really love about fiction, and like especially science fiction and like fantasy fiction. I think that exploring different worlds and just seeing like the bounds of someone's imagination is just, it makes me love reading so much. So I feel like I was always super drawn to science fiction novels, especially in middle school. I had the biggest Hunger Games phase in the world. So yeah, I just always was thinking about what my dystopian concept would be constantly. So it was very fun.
There were a bunch of things, and we're not going to get into too many spoilers, but there were a bunch of things in this book that I really, really loved. And one of them was this idea that she physically transforms in order to fit into this new world. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't read the book yet, I don't think we're giving too much away because this happens pretty early on in the book.
Yeah.
But there's a physical transformation and there's a name transformation where she is really told, you're going to be this other person now. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about it is that she didn't instantly go, oh, cool, great, now I'm happy.
Yeah.
She had to go on a journey to find her happiness. And do you feel like as you were writing it that you were like, well, that can't solve the problem, that just the physical transformation can't solve the problem?
Yeah, it was very interesting because that sort of changed a lot over time. That transformation scene was one of the first things that I wrote. Like, I have a draft of that from when I was 13, because that transformation machine where you get to be this really pretty version of yourself, this perfect version of yourself. Like, as a little insecure 13-year-old, I wanted that. And it was a very like framed in a very like, this is a positive thing and it's wonderful. And it's like, it's been interesting to sort of rewrite that a million times and sort of land on this like, well, that's not wonderful, but I created it in such a place of like, it was. So it was very interesting to sort of grow up with the concept and like find the sort of like downside to it, and to know that she had to grow in so many other ways too. Internally. Yeah, that it's really an internal, and you show that too. And again, I don't want to give too much away, but
everyone within this fishbowl house has a special skill. They're a great singer, they're a great actor. And I love that she gets there and she doesn't know what her skill is.
Exactly.
And I really feel like that it really hit home, this idea that they can put you in this machine and make you look a certain way. It doesn't make you know who you are or what you have to offer. And I thought that was a beautiful part of your beautiful book. Let's see, what else do I want to get to? I'm going to answer, because there's so many questions here and I don't want to forget to answer them. So the one that a lot of people are asking is this going to be a sequel? Is this a trilogy? Are you still working on classics?
Yes, so I was definitely posting versions of the sequel, the classics, on Wattpad, and now that the ending has changed so much, those sequels on Wattpad right now are sort of obsolete. Like, you'd be hopping into a completely different world at the end of this book going into a sequel, but there is definitely much more to be done, and I'm very excited to explore the new concepts that I've created in a sequel. And I don't even know if it would be called the classics anymore. The sky's the limit. I feel like this sequel process is going to be very interesting because it feels like I'm going off of creating something entirely new. But of course, I will be returning to a lot of the concepts that I introduced in the sequel on Wattpad. So yeah, I mean, the plan is to work on a sequel. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Okay, great. I know a lot of people too were wondering about the show, The Fishbowl, the reality show. Mm-hmm. How is that tied into the book exactly?
So the show itself is this, it's like a reality television show, sort of like a Big Brother, I would say Love Island, where just the famous members, this group of celebrities, they all live in this house called the Fishbowl. It's a glass house, and you can see everything that they do for a certain amount of time when they're in the Fishbowl. They don't live there 24/7, but every month they go into it, and it's broadcasted, and they can argue. There's drama. It's it's one of those kinds of TV shows where there's all this conflict. They're like the Kardashians, essentially. It's a reality TV show when they're in the Fishbowl. And yeah, it's very fun and creepy. And
now Wattpad has a reality show called The Fishbowl too. Or is that a real show? What is that?
So it's not actually a real show. It was a part of the marketing campaign to get people excited about the show. But goodness, I'd love it to be a real show.
Okay, because the way it looked on the website was kind of like, oh, they made a reality show inspired by the book. So that was marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, do you know if there's going to be any other adaptations of it?
Ooh, I have no idea, but I feel like those kinds of shows are always so popular. It'd be very fun to see that in a real life form,
Okay, that's great. Let's see. Oh, I have a question. And I don't even know if I could answer this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What was the hardest section of the book for you personally to write?
Oh, definitely the ending, because there were so many iterations. Even before the editing process, I had to rewrite the ending a ton. It changed very dramatically from what it was on Wattpad. But even while I was writing it on Wattpad, there's this question of whether or not someone's going to die. And I told my readers back when I had posted it on Wattpad that I had written a version where every single character died, a different version with each, and just felt out which one I liked. But
like Clue.
Exactly, like Clue, precisely. And so of course I've changed the ending a lot. So I went through so many iterations in the editing process of just new endings, different endings, trying to place my characters in the right spot to move on to a sequel. And it was so challenging. And then, of course, it's endings and beginnings, honestly. The world building in the beginning was very tough to sort of get down because I didn't really explain it too well in the Wattpad version. And every comment on those beginning chapters are like, is anyone else lost? What's going on? And so it was very clear I had to be a lot more to the point about what my world was like and what everyone was up to, basically. So beginnings and endings are always the hardest for me. So this
when you
book was
started writing at like 15 and posting, was how long did it take before you started really realizing like, oh, people are reading this, people are commenting?
It was interesting. I had posted just a couple chapters, and then suddenly it's like it gradually started to just more people started reading, and it happened way faster than I even remember. Like I started posting in July, and by Thanksgiving I had like 250,000 views. Like I don't remember it happening that fast, but apparently it did. I read back my old journals and I'm like, whoa, like that so casual for you?
A journal. That's a really good point.
Exactly. And so I feel like it happened very fast, so it never like hit me and made me nervous. It was more so exciting that people were telling me what they thought in real time. And it sort of helped me write more, like I felt way more motivated to put out a chapter every single week because I knew people were reading. So yeah, it was very exciting.
So do you tend to write the chapter on the week that you posted, or do you write way ahead like I do?
That's how I did the Famix. It was a chapter week by week. Yeah. I would usually write it Thursday night and then post it on Friday for Famix Friday. Oh, like wow. That's how little I knew it was going to happen. It was just, what do I want to do? It's Thursday night, and then I'd post it on Friday morning. And so
I kind of like that though. Like that shotgun, like write it. You got to figure it out.
It was an extremely pure way of creating a novel. And
you're officially a pantser. Then you are not a plotter.
Now I try to plot way more because that editing process was so arduous. I had to like then plan out what the book was and cut it down accordingly. So now with screenplays, of course, I plan way ahead down to the page of when things happen. So I think I've become way more of a plotter, but boy, in high school did I just write whatever like minutes before I posted.
Yeah. I found that too with screenplays, that they're so short that you really, you kind of got to figure out where you're going pretty quick.
You have to know. You can't really meander like a book.
Yes. Now, are you influenced by what people say in the comments when they're reading it on Wattpad?
So I wasn't especially influenced, like I didn't change things necessarily. I was more so using the comments to gauge what people thought, and it sort of helped me shape my plot twists, especially because I knew what people were expecting and I could give them the exact opposite, or I could make sure that they weren't on my case about something. And that was really fun. So if I was planning something and people guessed it, then I had to change accordingly. So that's when I would change.
I've totally done that. Yeah. Oh, they guessed it. All right, forget it. He's not the murderer. The other guy is.
Actually, you thought. I totally made you think that.
I meant for you to think that. Yeah, totally. I was one step ahead of you the whole time. But it is a different process writing on Wattpad than it is
for sure
at home. I've done both, and I think you realize like, oh, it's different when people are waiting for the pages and giving you notes as you go, and you have an expectation among the audience of where it's going to take them emotionally, and you don't want to let them down.
Absolutely.
So can you recreate for us? I'm not going to make you act, but the moment that you found out you were going to get published, what was that like?
Okay, so it was a very fun moment because we had scheduled a call and I was driving to class and I was like, hey, like I'm driving to class, what's up? I just thought it was just a call with the Wattpad people, just like, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, would you like to pull over? Because we have some news. We have a question we want to ask. And I'm like, I don't need to pull over, I'm good. And then like, I don't even remember the rest of the drive once they said that they wanted to publish the book.
Oh my God.
Like, I don't know how I got to school or how I didn't get into an accident.
I didn't drive off the road.
I'm just like driving and I can't see anymore. It's just, it was a very exciting time. And then I pulled into the parking lot and called everyone, like my whole family. And then I went into class and just sat there. And I'm like, they all don't know what just happened.
No.
It was very exciting.
Yeah. That's great. You have this great meme. I'm sure people saw it on Twitter and Instagram that was a juxtaposition of your picture from 3 years ago of saying, the truth is, I don't think I'm going to get published.
Yeah, it's a tweet from 2013. And like,
oh my gosh.
That was like,
young. How old were you in 2013?
I was like a sophomore in high school, like so dramatic. Like, So positively dramatic.
My dreams will never come true, and I'm 15.
Like, I don't think it's gonna happen. If it was gonna happen, it would have already. It's like, no.
God, that's really funny. Did you really think you were going to get published at 15?
Honestly, that was my game plan. I'm like, before I graduate high school, it's gonna happen. And like, I planned ahead as a kid, and so I was always perpetually stressed about whether or not I was gonna make it happen.
That is awesome. That is awesome. It took me a lot longer than that, so that is really, really, really cool. And you're getting it done. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very wonderful to look back on that tweet and be like, haha, you thought.
I did it. I know. And you did it, and you're doing it now, which is incredible. I'm going to answer another question because they're piling up and people think I'm ignoring them. We talked about how your writing changed from Wattpad to print. There was a lot of cutting it down. Oh, this is a great question. Who's your favorite character? Both as far as having fun writing this character and also just the one that you love the most.
Ooh, okay. So I feel like my favorite character just in general is probably either my protagonist, of course, Emily, M, as I call her. She's lovely, she's melodramatic, and she was my whiny teenage self when I needed her to be. But I also really love Chapter. He was like the main character that I was always planning. He wasn't the main character, but I mean, he's always existed in my mind, and it's been fun to sort of let him evolve. My favorite character to write, though, is the character Courtney. He's just a side character. He's not even a Famix member, and like so many people, especially in the Wattpad version, hated him, and then they like suddenly love him, and then they suddenly hate him again. And I love just writing characters like that are just your opinion on them varies. And he also, since he's not a Famix member, he's like always the person who knows the least in any scene he's in. So everyone has to talk about things like in such a way that he doesn't understand. And so it's fun to write him not getting it. So he's a very fun character to write.
Sue. What's the name of the character? Mary Sue? Peggy Sue? There's a character who exists so that people can tell them what the plot is, and that way you can
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. He's one of those.
Those are very useful. I have a lot of people who kind of walk into the scene like, what's happening? And you're like, well, let me tell you. Here's what's happening in the plot.
Here's all the exposition.
Here's the exposition I didn't get to 2 chapters ago. Let's see. Oh, this is great. What writer or artist has inspired you to create such an amazing piece of work?
Ooh, let's think. A lot of different writers inspired me, like especially with the first draft process of writing this book. There was a massive like beginning section before she even joins the Famix. It was way longer, like 200 pages. And that was sort of modeled after Jane Eyre because I loved the long beginning. And I was reading it in class and I was like, oh, this is my Jane Eyre. And I was sort of shaping it that way. And then another author that I was always wildly inspired by was F. Scott Fitzgerald. So a lot of there were so many Gatsby references that I had to cut out. I'm like, who am I like directly referencing a Gatsby quote right now? I just love the way.
That's such a fitting the comparison with Gatsby because there is this idea in Gatsby too of the wish fulfillment that everything will be great once I'm rich. I'll get the girl, I'll get everything, and turns out the money and all the stuff isn't necessarily the answer.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like I was always very inspired by the themes in Gatsby, and that sort of the themes in Gatsby are what I'd call the themes in my book. And then just his long descriptions of parties and like sort of just opulence, I strove to emulate when I was in high school, which was called for a lot of flowery descriptions, and it was very fun to write that way and very fun to read over now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna make sure we're not missing any of these. There's a lot of questions about the sequel. Oh, okay. If you had one day to spend in this world, no one would be able to kill you. What would you want to do in this world? And that is from the Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. So if you were in the Famix, what would you do?
Okay, if I was in the Famix, I feel like I'd probably just enjoy all of their weird, like, cool tech. Like, I would just be pampered all day long because I'm so famous and everyone loves me. I would just sort of soak that in and just feel very important all day long.
I had that too, where I was reading it, where I was like, I know this is dystopian and we're supposed to like not want to live in the fishbowl, but could I just like hang out there for a while and get my makeup?
I'd like to enjoy all the perks, actually, and then bow out.
Parties and like get a cool new dress. That would be great. And then I'll totally learn my lesson about how it does.
Exactly. Then I'll leave.
Totally.
I just enjoy the good parts.
One thing we did talk about doing, and we don't have to, but we talked about you reading a couple pages from page 52, and I kind of wanted to do it because I think even for people who haven't gotten to read this version of it yet, it's a great intro to this element of her being brought into the world. So do you want to read it?
Ooh, where would you want me to start?
I was thinking on 52. Let's see. So we're talking about she's been brought into this place by this woman who's in charge, right? Mm-hmm. And it's basically being told her, like, you are going to become part of this world, but you need to go through this transformation first. And so on page 52 at the top, it says, trust me.
Yeah, so she's being asked to be a part of the Phaemix, and it's very mysterious. So this is the character Norax is talking. She runs the Phaemix. She's like their manager, essentially, that kind of thing. So now you're going to hear my narrator voice. It's going to be great. All right. Trust me, she says, you are beautiful, M. Beautiful enough to be a part of all this. A gasp escapes me. Of what? Norax breaks our eye contact to examine her perfectly crafted nails, a grin playing on her face. Then she glances back at me, eager. Tell me, are you a fan of the Phaemix? Of course, I say, my pulse racing. Then you must then be aware of our current predicament, she says. We're in need of a new addition to our group. I guess, sure. And you know what I think, Em? I think that person should be you. What? I ask. The word comes out of my mouth involuntarily, before I can even register the weight of what Norax has just said. As my eyes stare into the golden Betnador nectar for stability, the whole world sways, and the teacup I'm holding is suddenly far too hot, and I have to set it down. She's just asked me if I wanted to join the Phaemix. Do you want me to go on?
I think that's good. So is that very different than it was online?
Online, it was more like So online, Norax does a lot of long speeches, and she just monologues a ton. So I had to cut it a little bit. Mm-hmm. It was just a lot of just like, you're beautiful and the world doesn't understand. And it became like Pinterest quote central, of just pumping her up. So, but it's pretty similar. I mean, pretty similar to the Wattpad version, but that one was fun to rewrite and sort of had an air of mystery to it, because sort of in the Wattpad version, Emma is just like, hell yeah, let's go. And like, she needs a little more convincing in this one, which I like. It makes more sense.
So you knew you had to post every Friday. Were there ever Thursday nights where you just said, I have no idea what to write?
Yes.
What did you?
That's when the filler chapters would happen. And I'd introduce a new plot line. Okay. Or I would just not post, but usually I would post every single Friday, and I'd feel very guilty if I didn't. And sometimes I'd be writing on Friday, trying to post by Friday evening, but mostly I would try to post Friday at like 6 a.m. when I was getting ready for school. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, most of the time during the week, I'd be thinking about what would happen next. And by the time I got like to the middle of the book, I knew sort of where we were going, but I mean, sometimes I'd be like, maybe this is the chapter where this happens, like just maybe, like just out of thin air. So there wasn't a lot of pacing and plotting in that way.
You have techniques to help you? Do you listen to music or anything?
I don't listen to like music with singing when I write. I used to, but like now I get so distracted, but I'll listen to like movie scores and get pumped up,
Yeah, I love that.
Movie scores they always do the trick.
Exactly. Yeah. I like to go for a walk. I put my headphones on, walk through my neighborhood. listen to my music and like the scenes pop into my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
5 chapters later, realize that the thing you wrote doesn't work with the thing that you wanted to do next.
Exactly. A lot of times I would even go through my old Word documents and sort of I used to write a ton of fragments, just like little random scenes, especially in middle school, just as if they were fanfics, just little one-shots. And then I'd look back at those and be like, oh, this was a Hunger Games fanfic, but how can I how can I take bits and pieces of this and put it in to the chapter today? So
exactly.
Sometimes it'd be like piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah, it is very much so, especially because it was such a long work. Of course, it must have felt like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, for sure.
Together. I'm going to look at a couple more of these questions. Okay. I personally loved the change of Race and Till's professions. What was your favorite thing that you got to sort of change or update when editing? Like that, like maybe changing what they did for a living or what their talent was.
I'm so glad someone likes those changes because they didn't all have their own like sort of thing. Like Race was an actor too, but he was like an artsy actor. So making him an artist was very like normal. But I mean, yeah, changing that and like sort of making them all way more distinct was really nice. And I also really liked changing character names because I have so many names that sort of started with the same letter. And I had to change those names to sort of space it out. So the page didn't look so confusing, just like the same. There were so many names that started with C. So that had to change a lot. And so coming up with new names was a very fun process for me.
There's one more thing. I don't want to give it away, but there's this great conceit in the book that there's a room you can go into where you can hear the sort of inner thoughts and the monologue of what's being said about you.
Yeah.
What was the moment where you were like, this is going to be a thing in the book? When did that come to you?
That was very interesting because I have like a little iPhone note that I found from like 2012 or something that's just like room where you can hear what's being said about you. Like I don't remember when I wrote it, but I was scrolling through it and found it and I was like, oh, that is so smart. And so like that was a very fun concept that I feel like is just would be very useful if you were a celebrity, especially to just know the public opinion about you at that exact moment.
Yeah, and, we had that on Twitter.
Yeah. That was, definitely before we had a lot of the instant way of knowing.
Yeah. Whether you like it or not, you're going to hear what people have to say about you.
Yeah. But then it's sort of like an eavesdropping thing where you're hearing what people are just saying and not necessarily what they're broadcasting. So
yeah,
it's like their little conversations they're having together in a room where they don't think anyone is listening and you could be listening. So it was very interesting and probably came out of my desire to know everyone's opinion of me at all times.
That's awesome. I'm gonna take a look. We are getting to like close to 7:40. So if anyone has other questions, I want to make sure I get to them. Oh, okay. So yeah, this is actually a great question because it is sci-fi and set in the future, you have a lot of interesting names. And this is always a thing with fantasy and sci-fi where you want to have names that sound like they come out of the real world, but aren't.
Yeah.
So the question is, how did you come up with the name Delicatum? How did you come up with what was the inspiration behind a lot of the different names that these characters have?
Yeah, the names were very fun because I came up with some of them and then some of them my twin sister would come up with and she'd be like, oh, like, hear this name. And I'd be like, oh, that's such a cool name. She came up with that country, the main country, Delicatum, because it's like a very delicate, like it plays on the word delicate and sort of our world now has been destroyed by an apocalypse. So they know how delicate the world is now. And so essentially that name reflects the delicate nature of the world in general. But yeah, my sister helped a lot with naming things. She's a very good idea person. She'll come to me with great concepts. She came up with the name Emery Essence and I had to beg her to take it. So I think I used it without telling her. And she was like, whoa, like that, I came up with that name. So
yeah,
her help definitely created a lot of this, the world and the names.
Does she write her own books?
She is a songwriter, so she's very lyrically talented, and she writes stories sometimes too. She wrote this Hunger Games fan fiction once, and it was amazing, and I loved it. And yeah, she writes really great scenes. She has such a lyrical way of writing because of songwriting, and every time she'll be like, hey, how does this sound? Like, she'll edit a scene and I'll be like, wow, like that sounds so much better. Like, how'd you do that? So she's so helpful and the best.
Awesome. That's great. So if you ever run out of like, I don't know how to fix this, you can just call her.
Exactly. Or she'll be my first line of reading things. I'll be like, what do you think, before I'd post? And
This is a dangerous question. I'm going to ask you this very dangerous question.
Ooh.
Are any of the characters based on people you know in real life?
Oh, that's a great question. So not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure every character is a piece of different people at the very least. A lot of characters I'd sort of model after just little concepts of myself. So it'd be very fun to hear that someone hates a character. And I'm like, that's how I act, like, good to know. But I mean, no one is strictly based off of anyone, which, I don't think anyone really could be. But if someone sees themselves in one of my characters, let's talk.
Yeah. Are there any characters, because I've had this, where you start creating them because they're supposed to be an antagonist or they're supposed to be somehow a foil, but then you end up really liking them, and so they end up becoming nice.
Yes, that is my character Courtney. He was just supposed to be annoying, and now I love him. And I was trying to make him mean, but even my readers really like him. And Kalina, when she was reading my edits, she's like, no, he's being too mean. Make him nicer. I'm like, somehow he's become a really nice guy.
It's the hardest part for me, is finding that antagonist, because you're like, well, they're just a person. They're just making choices.
Yeah. And sometimes the antagonists are just so much more exciting, and you just like them.
They're fun to write. So then you end up giving them all the good scenes, and then you're like, well, now I like them because I gave them juicy things to do.
You enjoy writing them the most.
I want to make sure that we got... Oh, I like this. Which scene or concept are you most proud of after the editing process? That's a nice one.
Ooh, that's a good question. What scene would I be the most proud of? Some of the romance scenes, they're not romance scenes, but some of the love story scenes I feel a lot more proud of, just because a lot of people joke that I can't write romance scenes, and there was a massive slow burn. Of course, a massive slow burn in the 800-page version. They don't even look at each other until page 400. So sort of writing those scenes, I was very proud of the way that they turned out in this book, just in the fact that they're so new. And then I'd say I'm the most proud of the Fizarek scene where she changes, because I feel like it was such an interesting concept that it was one of the first scenes, like I said, that I had written. So getting it to the point where it was, and now knowing that I can't change it anymore, here it is. Yeah. It's very gratifying to see it now and know that that's it. And that's what I've landed on after all these iterations. So yeah that's it for sure.
When you see your printed book and you're like, oh, it's final, I can't fix it now.
It's what if I just wanted to change the way I worded myself here?
I know. I look at my book and I'm like, I used the same word twice in one paragraph. It's terrible. Yeah. It's fine.
I'll see that and I'm like, wow, what was I thinking?
So something that comes up a lot when you write dystopian and sci-fi, and I know I deal with this a lot, is that you can get kind of bogged down in this idea that this is going to be the future and there's going to be a lot of negative things about it. But do you feel positive about the future now? Not just yours, but of the world, of the planet. It's kind of a fitting question because we had a big inauguration today, but how are you feeling about the future now?
I mean, I feel like the world will not progress to my dystopian world for sure. It would be very interesting if it did. And I mean, I'm always trying to be optimistic about the future, no matter what. Trying to plan less, because I had a lot of plans for what my year would look like right now that after last year, did not expect any of last year to happen. And now I'm in a different place, but you know, I'm just trying to always be optimistic about the future instead of nihilistic or pessimistic or any other istic. Yeah, I think that the world is good and it will try its best to be good and not dystopian.
Yeah, I know we didn't know our books, like when we got our book deals, that they'd be coming out during all of this, which
For
changed
sure.
a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I know yesterday you posted a picture from in a Barnes and Noble, and there was your book, right? So
Yeah.
the bookstores are opening. The books are going to be there on the shelves. We can go back and buy things and get back into our lives. So I'm feeling optimistic too about that.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Yeah.
getting to go to the bookstore and see my book was, of course, something that I was always looking forward to. So I'm glad that I got to do that. And yeah, I'm optimistic about the future for sure.
Do you think that you'll post more books on Wattpad?
I would love to. I just need to be writing again, and I'd probably be planning the books before I post them.
Okay.
Or maybe I'd just do my same route of posting as I go. So the sky's the limit, really. I'd love to be posting on Wattpad again. It was the most fun time posting the Famix. Like,
Yeah. Will it
just
be
something to look forward to every week.
when you post again? Will it be sci-fi, or do you think you're going to try something else?
Ooh, that's a great question. Maybe I'd do a mystery or something.
Yeah, I like that.
People wonder about things. I mean, I try to be mysterious in the Famix, but I could certainly try to maybe do something comedic. I write a lot of sitcom type things in screenplays, so you never know. And then I probably wouldn't be able to write romance, even though that's a suggestion in the comments.
Some romance in the book, though. But like you said, you were really young when you wrote it, so
Exactly.
of course you're like, I don't know anything about romance. But as you get older, you're like, okay, all right, maybe I could tell a story or two.
Yeah, I mean,
you
the
know, a lot of
romance
people here,
genre is...
they really want you to write a romance book. It's official in the comments.
Well, I could certainly try.
There was one question I really wanted to ask because I thought it was so well written, and I'm trying to find it. What is an aspect of the publishing process that a new writer would be surprised by? And we already talked about the editing, so that was a big deal. But is there something from the moment they were like, we're going to publish your book to now where you're like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen?
Oh, that is a great question. I guess sort of maybe just like all the like extra like auxiliary stuff that like you sort of don't realize that you're going to be doing. Like, I mean, like writing your own author bio. I'm like, oh, I have to talk about myself in the third person right now. Like, and sort of try to brag about myself. Doing things like the content warning. I'm like, ooh, like, what do I think I need to hint about? Just like those little things. It was very fun. Like the copy editing process and just adding in all those little things was a process that I just wasn't super familiar with. And so it was exciting and fresh and a welcome relief after finishing the big structural edits.
Yeah, I was
a fun task.
Different phases of editing there are where it's
for sure.
And you've got a copy editor, and then you've got the print edit, and then there's like 5 phases.
Yeah,
it takes
and like
a long time.
Getting to talk with all the different editors and just hear their feedback. It was very, very interesting and very exciting, and they all knew exactly how to make the book better. I was very thankful to have them.
I felt like that too with every editor. I'm like, oh, that's a great note. Thank you so much for thinking of that. I didn't think of that at all. That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know what they're doing. Somebody just wrote salacious in the comments. So yeah, I think we know what they're looking for. Someone says, was it fun picking out the cover art? And I have terrible news for you, Collie. We don't get to pick our cover art.
Mm-hmm.
That said, they picked a gorgeous, oh my gosh, they designed a gorgeous cover for your book. I love it. I'm going to show everybody.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Look at this. I love
the neon.
Glowing in the dark, the neon.
And the little lightsabers. I live for them.
You can't see her eyes because the
Mm-hmm.
The lightsabers? Yes. I don't even know what those are, but they're perfect.
I call them lightsabers and I love them. so much. I just love the colors. I love that it's a purple spine. You never see that.
Yeah, purple. Yeah, they did gorgeous. And I love my cover too. So there's a team of people who are in charge of making covers, and they know what they're doing, and they design these.
Exactly.
Covers.
It's very different from the cover on Wattpad. It was black and white and very subtle.
Yeah.
So
that's it. They did. Like, did they do this with you? Where they asked you though, like, do you like this? Do you want to change it at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw like a few different photos of models, and so it was very exciting to see the way that it would change. And then when they added the little lightsabers, it was very exciting. There were a couple iterations, and they always made me even more excited to realize that it was a real thing that we were making.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know, every time they showed it to me, I'm like, oh, I like that even more.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on writing under a pen name? But you don't really write under a pen name. That is your name.
Yeah, my name is Kassandra Tate. Tate is my middle name. I just like the way that it flows.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a pen name, but I mean, pen names are fun for sure. I probably wouldn't write under a pen name since I want all the glory, but
I want the credit. I'm already using my husband's last name. I want to make sure people in high school know that I published a book and I've done something with my life. Okay.
If you Google me, then you know.
And then our friend Ayana has a really good question. What is the best advice you received about storytelling or being a writer? So the best advice you've gotten.
Oh, what a big, expansive question. Advice about being a writer. I'm going to say something that's not necessarily advice, but a quote that I always came back to when writing, and a quote that I constantly come back to from Saul Bass. It's his quote, I want to make beautiful things even if no one cares. And I think that posting on Wattpad, of course, you're writing for an audience and you want people to read it. And so much of my writing process has been just to show it to people and try to get as many readers as possible. And I feel like it's been important to me to read that quote and know to not necessarily rely on validation. Like before I ever posted on Wattpad and before I ever posted anything, I would just write every single night until 2 a.m. just for myself. And, like I have to remember that that was a thing that I did even when no one was expecting me to do it. And before it was something that was my job at all in any form. And so I always try to keep that quote in mind, and
I love that quote.
Just write for myself.
I'm going to put that over my desk. Are you kidding me?
Right?
It's I'm going to do beautiful things even if no one is watching.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to write beautiful things even if no one cares. And so I love that quote. I always come back to it.
It's being an artist. I was an actress for years, and then I was a writer. And, sometimes you do a play and there's two people in the audience and you're like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not doing this. I'm doing this for me first.
Exactly.
And if someone else wants to check it out, that's great.
Exactly. Like you want it to be about you creating something and not necessarily creating something to be viewed and seen and consumed.
It's hard when you post something on Wattpad and it feels at first. I mean, when I first put Downworld up, I didn't have any followers. Nobody read it. I think my mom read it, and you're kind of like, why did I do this? Why did I do this? And next thing you know, people find it and they tell their friends, and you're like, oh, okay. But you really do have to have that feeling of I would have done it anyway because it was worth doing.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love that. And I'm going to put that quote on my desk.
Yes.
We have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure I'm not missing any good questions. And one thing I really did want to ask you is in your bio at the back of the book, you said that you got to work with Lin-Manuel Miranda. You got to work alongside him.
Yeah.
The curator for his is this a children's novel, Good Morning, Good Night?
It's this little book of the tweets that he would make. He would tweet good morning, good night every single day. And so it was sort of like a little quote book. So you can read it. It's like a little coffee table book, essentially. I got to be the person who selected all of the tweets and put them together and confer with the illustrator about whether or not the tweet could have an illustration or not. And so it was a very, very exciting process. And I can't believe I got to be the person that curated it at all. I was not qualified.
No one's ever qualified to do anything. You just do it. How did you get this? Did you just apply?
No, I mean, I've I was just someone who was tweeting Lynn all the time and tweeting him back. And I would send him some of his old tweets sometimes and just sort of be like, look, this time 3 years ago, you were writing Hamilton. Like, would you look at that? And so he followed me. And then just one time out of the blue, he just messaged me like, I think I have a job that you would like to do. Would you like to do it? And it all happened very fast. So.
Okay, so this is the lesson to learn, is that when you admire someone, and this is true though, when you admire someone, reach out to them, in a respectful way, and let them know, because you never know where those opportunities are going to come. That's
for sure. Yeah. I'm very glad that I just randomly would tweet him when I was just procrastinating on studying for things.
That is really great. And now you've got that amazing.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
An amazing story to tell, and that's wonderful. And I gotta say, that happens so often in life, where you just kind of stumble into these jobs and you're like, I don't know how I got this job. I was in the right place at the right time, and I took advantage of the opportunity when it came.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was very, very, very
It was very surreal, very wonderful. Just a great summer.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. All right, guys, we have a few minutes left. Does anybody have a question that you're dying to ask? And it can be about the Famex. Oh, I moved my whole thing. The Famex, or about publishing. Specifically, I know people often ask me on Wattpad, they'll write to me and say, like, how did you get followers? How did you get this book deal? And, the answer is always kind of the same, where I just kept writing until people found it. And there's probably a little luck involved, and there's a lot of hard work involved. So do you have a last bit of advice to give to people who are just starting on Wattpad and who are saying, oh man, I only have 2 readers?
I mean, I feel like you just have to keep doing it, because I feel like if you stop, then it'll never happen, really. I feel like just keep doing it and reach out to other writers. So much of my process of getting a readership on Wattpad was reaching out to other writers and just becoming friends with them, and their readers coming to read my book. And even if we were totally different genres, they would still cross over and read my book. And I feel like just getting to know as many people as possible and just posting regularly. I just kept posting every Friday, no matter what. So even if people had stopped reading, I would just keep posting every Friday. It holds me accountable.
I love that. By the way, Mysterious Galaxy Books has posted a link to Good Morning, Good Night. So if you guys want to check out this book, Lin-Manuel Miranda quotes, which is awesome, it is right there in the comments section.
It's a lovely book, very fun book.
Gosh, that's so great. I love that story so much. That's great advice. You just got to keep doing it. And I've found too that, like, I've followed people on Twitter, other Wattpad writers that I don't know, and just sort of, if they post, hey, I've got a new chapter up, I'll be like, this is great. Or if they post something about their career, I'll just sort of, say, hey, you don't know me, but I'm so happy for you, and this is great. And you never know. And over time, people sort of figure out who you are. Oh, I'm sorry, my son is here, and I think he wants to say hi. Do you want to come say hi, baby?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's bedtime, which is why I have visitors. Okay, I love you, honey. Daddy's going to tuck you in, okay?
Oh, how lovely.
This is what happens when something goes to 8 p.m. in our house. I love you, boo-boo. I'll be up in a minute. Don't play with that. Go ahead. Sorry. This is actually the most uninterrupted time I think I've ever had in 10 years. So this is great.
Wonderful. Glad I could be a part of it.
Have an adult conversation. I think we're summing up, but if anybody else wants to say anything, or if you have any parting words. Oh, hi.
Hello.
I feel like I was summoned.
Yeah. When my son comes into the conversation is when my mommy time is kicking in.
Well, I want to thank you, Rebecca, so much for joining us and for being such a great moderator and having so many amazing questions. And to thank you so much, Cassandra, for celebrating your new book. But I feel like new book form because you have been working on it for a while. But I'm going to call it a new book because to me it is a new book and it is in a glorious full book form. So thank you so much for celebrating it with us. And to all of our amazing readers and everything. It also looks like you had lots of love from people who have been following you since you started posting this on Wattpad. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you for all the amazing questions. It's so much fun when you guys are so engaged, and you all had awesome questions. So thank you so very much. If you want to go and purchase the Famex, I said it without an awkward pause that time, and I negated it by pointing it out that time. Make sure that you click the buy book button down below, and you can get a personalized book plate, and you can also pre-order Rebecca's book as well. But thank you so much, everyone, for such a lovely evening. So much love in the comments for Cassandra. I know. Thank you guys for giving her all the book love. She truly does deserve it. But on that note, we will say have a good evening, everyone, and we will see you at the next one. Goodbye.
Good night, guys.
Bye.